Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Another fantastic day for a fantastic interview. And I really mean that. I've got so many gorgeous guests that come from all walks of life. And they all bring something to my show. More importantly, they enrich me and they reinforce things, or at times make me question myself and think, I didn't think about that. And I think today I've got an inkling that this is exactly what will happen, because I've got Ericka Thomas here with me. Ericka is a coach of coaches, and she is very much focused on the fitness industry. And normally you would think, come on, a fitness coach, they know it all. They know everything about nutrition, hydration, looking after yourself. Yet the secret killer in the fitness industry is burnout. And you think, what the hell? So today, Ericka and I will going to dive a bit more into that, and we will see the impact of trauma in that industry, but more importantly also to see how trauma influences our body, and that really issues can very much get themselves into the tissues, and you will end up with maybe rather physical problems that where maybe a physical approach can assist in making you realize that there is more to a pain or more to a dysfunction in your body than just a muscle being a bit stretched out of position. So now this is going to be a fantastic interview. Ericka, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, Stefan. I'm so happy to be here.
Ericka, when did you start being interested in fitness? Were you always like that as a child?
Well, I will say I was always pretty physically active as a child. My dad really encouraged that. I'm the oldest of 4 kids and the only girl in our family. So I had to keep up and or set the pace, one of those two. And so we were exposed to many, many different sports and activities as a kid. So I was always really physically active, but not professionally until the late 90s, I would say. It was the late 90s. It's so long ago.
Hey, that was yesterday. Come on, take it easy, girl.
Yeah. So I actually, I started training in Taekwondo. And as a yellow belt, that was when the whole Taibo thing hit. I don't know if you're familiar with Billy Blanks and the Taibo phenomenon hit.
I am, but
scene.
tell us a bit. Okay. What about it?
So it's the choreographed cardio version of martial arts. So it's a fitness version of a martial arts training, right? So it was fantastic at the time because it kind of made martial arts a little more accessible to people who maybe would not have stepped into a martial arts school, but they would definitely do a kickboxing class. And at the time, my Taekwondo master wanted somebody to teach those classes for him because he wasn't all that into that. And so he sent me to a 4-hour training, right? 4-hour workshop to learn how to teach a cardio kickboxing class.
Cool.
4 hours. Turns out 4 hours of training isn't really enough to be able to answer the kind of fitness questions you get as a fitness professional, like quote unquote professional. You're hardly a professional after 4 hours, right? So I basically started teaching with like 15 minutes basically of experience, and went from there. But I loved that. I loved kickboxing. I loved martial arts. And that's where I started. And from there, because I knew I couldn't answer the deeper questions that my students were coming to me with, I started collecting other certifications over the years.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's where it started. And it just kind of grew from that.
What made you turn to Taekwondo?
Well, okay. So my family, my husband, we had just gotten out of the military. We were stationed in Germany for 3.5 years. I had 2 young kids and we had 1 car. And we were transferred back to the United States. He got a job in North Carolina and I needed to do something that was going to get me out of the house where I wasn't the mom and, the monkey bars where the children climbing on me. I just wanted something for myself. And this martial arts school was within walking distance. So I didn't need the car. I could just go.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
So it was like a divine timing thing. And when I look back over my life, and maybe you can do this too, Stefan, there are probably moments where you're like, if I wasn't in that one place at that one time, none of this would have happened.
True.
Right?
True.
Yeah. It was a very stressful time though, because we, were young family and fresh out of the military and really didn't have a lot of money, obviously, I couldn't get anywhere if I couldn't walk. And so it was trying. And so martial arts was like a great outlet. You got to hit things and yell. And I was all about it.
That's good. The reason I'm asking is I started martial arts because I was the victim of a gang assault. And so I don't think my bruises had healed by the time I first stepped into a dojo. And I studied jiu-jitsu and became quite extreme in my studies because I had very much an incentive to become A, very fit, and B, I was under the impression that the gang leader who I brought behind bars would, on his release, try to kill me. So I had a very, very damn good trauma-infused background to actually get into the martial arts. So therefore, it's always good to see why actually someone takes on a certain path. So that was...
I will say this about that time in my life. That was probably the first time where I really was able to practice self-discipline in that dojo. Yeah. Up until that point, there's very few places in our culture today where you are asked to really be self-disciplined in any kind of way. Yeah. And at the time, I was 25 at that time. So, I was an adult. I had 2 kids, for crying out loud. Yeah. And we could all benefit from a little bit more self-discipline.
Which just surprises me because you said that that your husband was deployed. Were you serving as well at the same time? I see. So I see where the difference is. I thought that you had both been working and been deployed in the military. Cool. So it's interesting. So he had the discipline. Was there not a flow-on effect on his life?
Really?
Oh, I had to ask. Come on. Okay. Okay. Let's stop that line of questioning here, Your Honor. No, that's cool. But we are all young and we are stupid. And it's interesting that you say, with hindsight, I needed that discipline. And that is indeed what a traditional martial art training provides you with. Indeed. Yes. It's beautiful. Yes. Beautiful. So there you were, Taekwondo, and then immediately, oh, by the way, you're teaching tonight.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So fantastic. So you started accumulating the letters in front and behind your name. Yes. How did that continue, that story?
Well, okay. So this is not unusual for fitness instructors to collect certifications because... we're usually, people come into this industry from all different angles. And not all of them are through like a college or university. A lot of us are coming from outside of that. Like this is, we just love working out. And so why not become an instructor? Why not get paid to do what you love? There's a lot of that. And so you might not have like the educational background that necessarily meets that need. And so you have to kind of step it up a little bit. There's that piece. And then there's the piece that, you can only do so much with what you know, and then you have to add on, right? Otherwise we're doing the same thing over and over again. We're offering the same thing, and I can only speak to myself, but as an instructor and as a coach, I sometimes got a little bored saying the same things over and over again, right? Even though the people in front of me are different, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. And so I needed ways to refill that well of energy, of knowledge, just new ways to do things, and like to recharge my creativity, because it takes a lot of creativity to put a class together, to put a workout together, to inspire somebody to change their behavior in a way that isn't, top down approach. Like, I'm going to tell you what to do. It has to be, inspiring them to make those changes, right? There's a lot to that. And so one way to do that is to get more letters after your name, right? There's the certified. I started with certified personal trainer, and then somewhere in there I got a couple of black belts, and then added on group fitness after, like years after I was already teaching group fitness, that certification. And then we kind of go into the nutrition side and the health coaching side, and trying to get into the behavior change and the more psychology around that. For me, I got to the point where I was really, really starting to burn out. Several times this happened across my career. And every time I started to feel that, I would just go get another certification. And that kind of, boosted me for a little while, but it didn't change anything about the burnout sensation. And then it started to soak into my body and change physiologically. So then there was like all kinds of physiological dysfunction coming up. So here I am, supposed to be the healthy one in the room, the strongest one in the room, in chronic pain all the time, completely exhausted, unable to sleep, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, completely dysregulated emotionally. And but on the surface, when I would step in front of the class, boy, I had it together. That was like I was so comfortable being uncomfortable that in that space, I was fine. It was when I was not in that space where I was not fine. And I got to the point where I just was like, I might have to quit because I hurt so bad. Like my body was just not good. It was just not a good place to be, for sure. And finally, I had been to several doctors. None of them could find anything wrong with me physically, because, chronic stress injury like that doesn't show up on a test.
So true.
It doesn't show up in a blood test, anything like that. And so, and I was really struggling because I thought, my personality, I was not living my best life. I was not my best self. I wasn't the best person I could be for my kids. And I was just miserable. And I'm like, gosh, this cannot be all there is, And finally, just accidentally, my husband came home with this magazine, this outdoor magazine, and they had done an article about food cleanses in there. And I read it and I was like, I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to do like the hardest looking one, the one that takes 40 days, because that's my personality, Stefan, was like, if it's not the most challenging, the hardest thing to do, then it's not worth doing. Right. A lot of us are like that.
Type A personality. Yeah. Right. Okay.
So, but that was the key. That was the first key to me, that there was something else going on. And as we know now, we know a lot more now than even back then when this was going on with me, that how the state of your gut health affects your mental health and vice versa, and how tightly those two things are connected. And when I figured that out, when I finally learned that connection between stress and this physiological response in the body, I was like, ding, 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 ding. We have to do more with this. And so I started looking into trauma release exercise, being able to work through the body, because stress and trauma is basically written in the tension of our body. So if we don't address the body, we can talk to a therapist all day long. But if we don't give the body a way to release it in some way, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays. You can just sit in it and marinate in that for years, and that's what was going on with me. So, a lot of words. Sorry.
Oh, no. I love the way you phrased things, and they are easily understandable and in a common sense language. They can also be a bit wishy-washy. As doctors, we are not wishy-washy. We try to put you into a nice little thing, various things. You have got an anxiety disorder. You have got fibromyalgia. You have got whatever. So what labels did you accumulate?
Okay. Well, I accumulated officially, I accumulated that IBS label, right? So, and then I said, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Like, I really had a thing about the doctors that I was visiting, because a couple of them wanted to like remove parts of my body to fix this. So, and if you go to a GI doctor, which I did, because that's where the pain is, right? You follow the pain. The pain is a symptom. We often don't pay any attention to what's going on in the body unless it hurts. And then we're like, okay, what part hurts? Let's go to that doctor. So that's what I did. My gut hurt. So I went to the GI doctor. The first one, basically spent 5 minutes with me and said, we'll probably have to take your gallbladder out. And I was like, what? What? No. Are you sure that's where we're going to go there first? Like, what else is there?
Between you and me, that brings some money in, the doctor needs to eat some food too. So therefore, okay. Yes. Appendix, it's already done. Okay, what about gallbladder? Oh, let's take that out. Okay, that's derogatory. My surgical colleagues, please forgive me. I work with two beautiful surgeons, and your gallbladders are just fine. So they need to come out.
Yeah, you make a good point there, right? When people specialize in one thing, sometimes that's the only thing they can see. And
if you only have got a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly.
You're so true.
Yes.
So true. And I think, in all fairness, let's go though one step back. So we were already a bit derogatory to my own profession, which is actually a bit stupid. So the reality is, I think you did exactly the right thing. You actually went looking for the bad things. There is the C word, and with that I mean cancer. There are some very weird things, inflammations of the bowel, where really the whole bowel is raw and inflamed and it's nasty. And that so you need to check for that out.
Yes, absolutely. You definitely do. So you have to follow those symptoms to a point. When they test all the tests, when they show you the pictures and there's nothing there, if there's nothing there, then, and you still have pain, we can't just accept the thing like it's all in your head, because that is often the next thing that happens, right?
Love it.
That is not true. It's not in your head. It's not up here. If you're feeling pain, there is something wrong. Your body is trying to speak to you.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's screaming because we haven't heard the whispers up until this point. And so what I would like to do is help people listen to the whispers before it gets to that point, and to be able to find a friendly connection, to reestablish that friendly connection, the communication between the body and the mind, in ways so that you don't have to get there. You don't have to be in so much excruciating pain and not be able to trace it to a certain thing.
Absolutely.
But we all want to know the answer, right? I mean, we all want to know why. Why is this happening? And it would be I was really disappointed at not having a true diagnosis. I will tell you that. Because it's hard.
Absolutely. Yet, that is actually a beautiful starting point, because you could rephrase that and say, we have given you a warranty of fitness. You will not die tomorrow of cancer. You
Yes.
will not die tomorrow because you got rips apart and you get septic and you die.
Right.
So tick, brilliant, celebrate. Now, the problem is, obviously, there is still your body is trying to tell you something.
Yes.
And that is then when the hunt really starts. So far,
Yes.
that was autopilot. It hurts, you go to the doctor does the right examinations, finds nothing seriously wrong with you. Brilliant. Step one. Step two now, okay, let's figure really out what's going on.
Right.
And that is a beautiful journey if you let it be a beautiful journey. And let me clarify that. From now on, or from that point onwards in your journey, there is no more clear-cut path. So
Right.
far, there was a path going very clear. It was largely laid out through the forest. And now suddenly the path disappears. You could go right, you could left, you could go anywhere in the forest, and there is no right answer. And that is where then people like you, Ericka, come in and maybe be of assistance there. But equally, this path, as I said, there are a number of things. Let me give you two examples. One example is out of my past when I was a pain physician. And I had a lady who has had long-standing, 20 years of tummy pains. And she had undergone numerous investigations, numerous operations, and he came to me just as a pain physician to just have another opinion. And at that time, all my patients had to fill out a good ream of paperwork. I really wanted to know everything from them. It would take you 3/4 of an hour to fill that all out. She did. And one of the questions that is asked there, have you ever been abused? And the lady came, and she had answered positively in that question. And she came in, she had, I think, her son with her from memory, and sat down. And I started talking and inviting her to share her story. And she stopped me and said, you're the first doctor in my whole life who has asked me if I was abused. And I said, I'm so pleased that you think you can share that with me. Tell me more. And it turned out that her husband was very controlling, dominating, and that he would knee her into the stomach every time they had a fight. So that would leave no marks, no witnesses, no evidence. But that was a very dark part of her life until she separated. Needless to say, this lady did not need another investigation. She did not need strong morphine-like painkillers. She needed to talk about that. And just me asking the right question opened up that door to her, and her realization, and herself allowing herself to admit to that link, which she probably knew all the time along, but it was just the right time for her to come out with those issues and
Right.
actually finally deal with it.
That is an amazing example right there of how the body remembers and how the body keeps those stories current. It really can't tell time, And we think that these things happen to us in the past and they should stay in the past. But the body will carry those forward until it's given a chance to let them out. And yeah, she probably remembered those things happening. The body just keeps that tension right there. It's just held as tension.
You're so right. You're so right. And there are many other examples like that. And in medical terms, if you really think along the psychiatric, so the disease of the mind road, then it is called somatization disorder. And that's typically, it's more common in women, where essentially they frequently complain about gynecological problems, they complain about headaches, they complain about bowel problems, this kind of holy trinity, so to speak, there. And typically when you investigate all these things, you don't come up with anything. And so it clearly must be in their head. Well, in actual fact, it is in their head, just not the way in the derogatory term that we want, that we use that phrase, but rather is that there is something very different going on, that there's often trauma involved, that there's often a mental health problem involved that is not being recognized, where the needs are not met, where the core beliefs of a patient are so out of kilter with reality that really the body says, you got to be joking. And as you say, it doesn't whisper, it shouts from the rooftops, from that rooftop there, from that rooftop down there. And so again and again we see these kind of pictures in appearing in so many people around us. So it's and I hate that word, actually, disorder. Somatization, disorder.
Yes.
No, this is actually not necessarily a disorder. Can we just call it what it is? That your body is asking for help, that there's a message is not being heard, and that maybe it is time to listen up and actually say, okay, fair call, it hurts. Maybe let's try to figure that out. What is going on here?
Yeah, I hesitate. I'm a little resistant to that word disorder as well. I prefer the word injury, but I feel like if you label something a disorder, it puts someone in that patient category rather than a participant in their healing process.
I like a lot. Yep, very much so. The other story that I want to share with you guys is my own story when it comes to when it comes to pain. I suffered myself. I had in my mid-40s, I had a nasty inflammation of my Achilles tendon, and it crippled me. I mean, if I walked 1,000 steps under excruciating pain per day, that was a lot. And I underwent classic therapy for it and experimental shockwave therapy. And yeah, it gave me a bit of function back, but it did change nothing on the pain. At round about the same time, I also felt chronically tired and run down. And I got in touch with Ben Warren, a nutritionist who I've had on as a guest on my show. And I knew him and I knew his work. And I had referred many patients. So I said, come on, Ben, I'll put my money where my mouth is. Look at me, take me apart, etc. And we did. I filled his reams of paperwork out, and he did blood tests, etc. Turns out I'm allergic to a good German breakfast. Good German breakfast means lots of bread, cheese, butter, eggs. Oh, yummy. I'm allergic to all of it.
Oh.
So, okay, I hated it, but I went gluten-free, went dairy-free, and basically steaks and salad for breakfast kind of thing. And, well, what shall I say? 2 months later, my crippling disease that I had for 18 months, gone. My hay fever, virtually gone. My shoulder injury from the past, no more an issue. Amazing change in my body. So here were allergies, food allergies that played a role. But still, my body knew that something was wrong, and he tried to scream it from the rooftops. In this case, my nose, hachi, hachi, and the allergies going nuts, and me not being able to walk. So amazing. And then I switched it more or less off by listening to my body. How amazing is that?
It is incredible, but who would have guessed that pain in your Achilles tendon would have anything to do with how you were eating breakfast? I mean, like, no one would put those two things together. And that's something that I think more people should know about. Like we have all these intricate connections that don't necessarily make sense on the surface, but we just are not equipped to make that connection. That's why I loved what you said earlier about having like basically no visible path, all different kinds of paths in front of you. Yeah. But we need to be open to looking at different ways to move forward for whatever way we can.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. And you need to make a start somewhere. So I
Yes.
think that is the thing. And why not work with a tissue approach? So
Hmm.
and that was sort of the way you started
Yes.
and got into it. So if we were to actually see tension in muscles and see why there are certain things that are happening, I mean, that's where often tremendous change can happen. Tell us a bit about your first experiences there. How did you get hooked onto that belief system, onto that way of approaching the human
Yeah.
body?
Yeah. So I first was sort of introduced to this working through the body to affect trauma and stress through my yoga certifications and some yoga workshops that were specifically designed for trauma informed yoga. And my training is through Yoga Fit, and they offer a program called Yoga Fit for Warriors that is designed to help veterans, originally veterans in PTSD.
Yeah.
And they introduce a lot of different modalities within yoga to use as ways to release stress. And one of those modalities was trauma release exercise, which is
Nice.
the introduction of a self-induced tremor. It was designed by Dr. David Berceli, and it's a series. His program is a series of exercises that charge the muscles in a way that allow a really easy tremor to come out in the body that is what is the word I'm looking for? It's not a conscious tremor. It's not like you're shaking your hand. It would be in a relaxed state. He calls it a neurogenic tremor, and the body just kind of starts to shake,
Yeah.
similar to what would happen to any mammal after they escape some sort of life-threatening event, right? They
Absolutely.
shake it off, right? Or if you've ever ridden a roller coaster and you step off the roller coaster, sometimes your hands will just tremble a little bit, or you've almost had a car accident and then you're through it, and then you start to shake a little bit. That is the kind of thing that people can access and allow the body to do in a really safe and controlled manner, where you activate that response in the body and then you practice coming out of it in stop and rest, and then go and you titrate that back and forth, and then the body it kind of reorganizes the really deep vagal autonomic nervous system sympathetic activation response, so that when you're not doing that exercise and then you're exposed to stress later, the body knows how to come out of it.
Yeah.
So you're not getting stuck in this activated state. So I was living in an activated state 24/7. Other people, it doesn't take most people, you're not supposed to stay there, right? We're brilliantly designed to rise to the challenge, survive it, do what we need to do to survive, and then come back down to this social engagement where we can live our best life. But sometimes we get stuck up there, for too long. Anything that is too much, too fast, or for too long is going to keep you in that activated state. And so when if you ignore it, it still has to go somewhere. It tends to get locked in the fascia, in the joints, in the muscles. That's where that statement, the issues are in our tissues, that thing comes from. So if it's stuck there in the body, we can use things like movement, like exercise, like the tremor and trauma release, to let the body complete that fight or flight response that it maybe didn't get to do in the moment. And so when it does that, sometimes there's story that can come up in the mind when you're doing those kinds of sessions. This is why sometimes in yoga classes, people will just burst into tears. So like it's a movement It doesn't have to be the tremor thing. Any kind of movement can allow those things to come out. Sometimes you know what the story is that is connected with that emotional release that comes out in the body. Sometimes there's no emotional release. Sometimes you don't have a story that you know. And sometimes your story doesn't match what the body's story is. So there's all kinds of different there's different options that can happen for people. It's not the same for everyone. It's not the same every time. Everyone's an individual, right? Because we know that all of our events, our traumas, our history, we have that event, we have our experience of the event, and then we have the effect of the event. And people can experience the same thing and have completely different effects from it. It could be the same event, different
and
response.
The same event at different times
Yes.
might actually result in different responses.
Exactly. Different times in your life, correct, whatever it is, right? So we could talk a little bit about what causes those things, like the ultimate source of stress that turns into trauma. And what I found is that there's 3 things that are common to all of that. And the first one is uncertainty. There's some uncertainty about what's going on. The second is that there's a definite lack of control or lack of agency, like you cannot get out, you're stuck in this event. And then the third one is isolation of some kind, where you are either alone or you have no way to connect with someone after, or there's some piece missing there. Those 3 things are common, right, to events, any kind of stressor, whether it's acute or long-term exposure to bad things, right? So you could apply any of those across the board.
And what you have described there is the classical setup for PTSD.
Yes.
These are clearly things. And again, we are labeling things here, but essentially you use common sense terms to describe the same thing. So PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the originally named shell shock, or there are a number of other more colloquial terms for it. But essentially it is, you have got an event that for that person is incredibly profound. That could be the extreme of literally being on the battlefield and having the very clear risk of dying and seeing atrocious things in front of you and next to you. That could be another threat that is perceived as literally to you, but for someone else might not be. Let's say you're involved in a road traffic accident. There's some people who have been in horrendous traffic accidents, and they say, yeah, okay, yeah, my leg, oh yeah, that was bent this way there, and then, but it didn't really affect me too much because I was focused on other things. Boom. The same person in the same road traffic accident who might have a minor injury, just a sprained wrist, might have experienced the same thing very, very different. But the hallmarks that you have just described were all triggered. And suddenly this person has entered a living hell of symptoms such as being constantly aroused, being constantly on the go, constantly the need to control everything around you, the hypervigilance, the often flashbacks of the event, or the poor sleep, the nightmares, these kind of hallmarks of PTSD. That is what we are describing. Now, PTSD, once you're labeled out there and once you're sort of a beautiful label and the extreme, that's all quite nice. That's easy to recognize. The problem is the shades of gray. Yeah. And that is really what so many of us have. We have got variations of that and don't recognize it. And that is, I think, where we really need to pay attention. Because there's so much trauma out there. can be that. For example, how many motor vehicle accidents are there in the United States? I don't know the number. I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is for every severe motor vehicle accident, for the chance of you being involved in a motor vehicle accident or that is severe, the chance of PTSD is about 30%, 1 in 3. So that's a hell of a lot of people that are running around out there unrecognized. And that was that example. What's the chance of PTSD after an sexual abuse? Tremendous. And how many women are being sexually abused and men. So all these kind of things, there's so much trauma out there. And we somehow think, oh yeah, we take it in the chin. We're strong. I'm a strong woman. Now I can live it all myself. My ass, you can. And that is the problem. So this is what we're talking, isn't it?
Yes. And so here is the thing. When the symptoms that show up, because they're so broad, right? We have all kinds of different symptoms and they don't all rise to the level of a clinical diagnosis of PTSD, right? But the major ones, depression and anxiety, are very, very common. And not that when you experience anxiety and depression, it's going to last forever, but at some point in your life, a lot of people fall into that category or can say that, yes, I have experienced depression, I have experienced anxiety. And it may just be for a season, or it may be, for something long enough to get you to go in to be diagnosed. But because of that, one of the things that people recommend often for depression and anxiety is to go and exercise, right? To go and work out. And there's many, many reasons why it helps for people. But as a fitness industry professional, we don't get any training on how to co-regulate with people who are walking into our room. It's just an assumed thing that everybody walks in as healthy. And guarantee you, every single person in that room is there for a different reason. And some of them are there to not feel what they're feeling. And so the exercise itself, the workout itself, is acting as external regulation that is actually taking people out of their body, because they're there because they don't want to think about what they're feeling in their body. They want to feel something else, right? This is a classic external regulation, and exercise can also be used as a drug, right? So a lot of people will use it to dissociate.
Yeah.
So as an instructor, as a coach, part of our job should be to help people direct awareness in their body in a way that builds resilience rather than removes that connection or reinforces that disconnection, I should say. So, yeah. So that's where I was going with that.
Which is beautiful. No, you're so right. You're so right. But it is teaching you to listen to your body. Yes. Teaching you to actually open your eyes and your mind to what the body is really saying. And if you are in pain, then maybe there is something that your body needs to tell you, and maybe it's time for you to listen. But please don't now think, great, I've been in chronic lifelong pain, and now I finally, when I start moving, I'm going to be so much better. It's going to be all cured. There's a chance that it won't act like that, okay? But could it be that you get tremendously better? Yes. Could it be that movement is a key ingredient in your path to recovery? Absolutely. Will it be the only thing? Probably not. Okay? Probably not. There's so much more then. You're actually just opening the door to your recovery. You're starting slashing your own path, but that path is convoluted. It goes all over the show, and you can't see around the next corner. So I can guarantee you that once you start working with your own mind, with your soul, with your injuries, with your trauma, that is an interesting story, and this will be unique to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the important thing, I think, for people to remember is to keep a real hold on what your intention is when you start to move. I think sometimes that gets lost, or we pick an intention that doesn't really match what the body is looking for, right? So intention matters. The mind is so powerful and can affect a lot of physiological functions in the body, how you feel, if you approach it the right way. And instead of, kind of cracking the whip with your internal dialogue, maybe the answer is to back off a little bit and try to find some positive mantras. I mean, that is the only word that's coming to mind right now. Or replacement thoughts that allow you permission to stop and rest when you are moving, that allow you permission to actually practice listening to your body. So I use that term a lot in yoga when I'm teaching yoga, is to listen to your body. But the next part of the sentence is most important, and that is to honor what you hear. Because if you're listening to your body and it's saying, I hate planks, and I'm cringing every time you do that push up, and I just, everything in my body is, every cell in my body is saying no, and I ignore that, that is not good. That's telling my body that I don't trust it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't know what's best for it. And, forget you. We're doing those. We're doing that set of 100, whatever it is. And we're going to burn that many calories, but it's not that important, really. That stuff is not that important.
So how do you distinguish the other voice in your head that says, no, actually, no, come on, it's not so important that you really hate exercise. Therefore, it's okay not to do exercise. I have got that voice a lot. So
yes. So there is definitely, you kind of have to have a come to Jesus moment, Stefan. No,
agreed.
there's a balance, right? We all need a balance, and there's a balance in that discipline, the discipline of of being able to be in your body with some discomfort, and then knowing that it's not going to last. So, this is a different conversation when you're talking about someone in chronic pain, though, right? So we were talking about chronic pain. And so if someone is in chronic pain from a real injury, a real diagnosis, we treat that differently than someone who is, who doesn't have any underlying conditions, right? So let's just be clear about that. I want to be very clear about that. So there is a big difference. So for me, there was years where I didn't cut myself any slack. I was kind of really wrapped up in this idea that I needed to hold myself to a higher standard and give everyone else the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you're sometimes that standard gets so high you can't even get there. There's nothing you can do to get there. So there's all kinds of things going on in the mind that makes nothing good enough. So you're just striving. There's a difference between that and getting a good workout. So when I tell people to stop working out and start working in, this is what I'm talking about, right? What is your purpose? What is your intention behind your movement? So are you here to feel good in your body? Okay, that's going to take a certain level. Are you here to train for your next marathon? That's another level, right? Are you here to be an Olympic athlete? That's a whole other level. Okay. So it's about what your intention is. And if you are unclear about that, then it's going to be real confusing to more than just, just your body. So you can make those mindful choices about what you're going to do. But it doesn't have to overwhelm your nervous system. And I would also say, speaking of that, as long as we are recovering the nervous system, actively recovering for the nervous system, we can still work out hard. You can still get a really good, hard workout. But you have to include that recovery.
So true. And that might take longer than you like, than you think is necessary. There are days when literally when I try to push. So at the moment, I'm trying to swim a marathon in a month. So really go out there, swim every day, or at least every other day. Now, swimming every day, I actually can't. My muscles are telling me, you're going to be joking. So I try to do every 36 hours or every 48 hours, do a bit of a longer swim. And that seems to be more sustainable with my body. I've tried, however, to push myself. I tried to push the body. And guess what? My body was screaming. And it wasn't pretty. And if at all, I actually made things worse. This was not sustainable. So sometimes it makes sense to push. And you can push. There's no doubt about it. But is that worthwhile in the long run? Or are you just pushing, only then to have a more severe burnout, a more severe crashing down? And I think that is on the cards. That's where we need to look at our body and our mind and what we really do in a more holistic way. And I know it sounds a bit corny, but I actually mean it. There are times when you need to lie on the couch and just say, nope, tonight we don't gonna swim. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There is a difference between surrender and collapse.
Yeah.
And I find that surrender is a very sweet choice to make sometimes, where you can just. But it took me a long time to get there, to be able to say on purpose, no, for today, it's okay to just not do that. It's okay to not participate. It's all right. Nothing bad will happen. It's all right.
And that can be the first step on the path to recovery in this case.
Yeah.
Because if you have been a people pleaser and many of your problems have arisen from you always saying yes, taking on more, the moment you actually say, no, tonight I will not train, then maybe tomorrow you will also quite happily look in someone's eyes and says, thank you very much for that opportunity, but right now I honestly, I can't. Thank you so much. What do you mean? But you're so good. You're so wonderful in what you're doing. Come on, you can do another spin class. Get up at 4. Come on.
Oh my God, I'm having a flashback, Stefan. Stop.
Please, we all have been there. People butter you up and say, because it fits into their whatever reasons. And you are saying, oh, yes. No. Say no until your mouth bleeds. Okay, and sometimes that's the right thing.
Yeah, you bring up a great point about finding balance, right? To be able to balance your activity level. And this is an interesting point for those people who are working in the fitness industry, or wellness providers, or coaches, or things like that, even professional athletes, right? So a lot of the things that we tell our clients to do for self-care are the things that we do all the time, every day, for our job. So for us, our self-care cannot be more of the same things that we're already doing.
Okay.
Right?
Provided you're doing it. I think that's the other thing
Right.
to say.
Yes.
Sometimes we say,
Yes.
do as I say, not do as I do.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So like there was a point in my career where I taught and led 24 hours of classes a week. That is insane. We're talking like 5 hours of workout every day. And and I knew I was stressed. I was stressed and I was exhausted. I'm like, oh, I need to do something for myself. So guess what I did?
More
Stefan?
workouts. Let me guess.
I thought I should start running 3 miles. In the morning every day.
exactly. Shit.
Yeah. And that wasn't enough. There's like, we should probably look at some marathons because that would really be good.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. 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 I am not claiming to be the smartest
Yeah, okay.
in the room.
No, but it's so tempting because you
Yeah.
know that exercise is good, so
Yes.
therefore more exercise must be better.
Of course.
Yeah, about that. And that's actually, if you look at a graph, and if you imagine no exercise whatsoever, the risk of something going pear-shaped is really up there, really high. So coronary events, strokes, etc. The moment you start doing exercise, it actually comes down. So now that you're doing a healthy amount of exercise, the risk of something nasty happen is much reduced. Now you increase the exercise. Guess what happens? It goes up again here. Suddenly, you get sudden coronary events because you're just overstressing your system this much that you come to a level where you actually start killing yourself. So too little, not very clever. Too much, not very clever. But what is that sweet spot?
Right.
And
And everybody has to find it for themselves. You've got to figure that out for yourself. And a good coach can help you do that, to
yeah.
test out everything. It's all just data points, right? We just experiment with what's out there, what feels right.
Absolutely.
And
And I mean, let's give you another example out there. Things might also change for you. You are the same girl, and you were at a level of fitness, and that's brilliant. And then Mr. Right looked into your eyes, and then the birds, the bees, babies come, and now you're still the same girl, but now you're hit with postnatal depression.
yes.
And you're saying, okay, I can do that. I go back to the gym because I was a gym rat before I met Mr. Right. And that's only 3 years ago. So come on, not so much can have changed. Guess what? The intervention there and the support you needed there and the support you need here is probably quite different. May I
Yes.
dare to say that? So
Yes.
here you go. There are so many factors there, but you alone to figure it out can be incredibly hard. And I guess that's where people like you come in, Ericka, who have got people who have got a knowledge level that goes beyond how a muscle works and what's the best exercise regime to cut or to grow or to do whatever it is you want to do, but rather to say, well, how does exercise can help you become a healthier and more beautiful you, regardless of what that does to your body, but what does it do to your soul? What does it do to your mind? Where does exercise fit in you becoming the you that you deserve to be? And I think that is really the key question, isn't it? Not
Yeah.
can you drop 3 kilograms or can I
Exactly.
get my biceps just a little bit bigger? Yes, you can, but there may be other questions that are more important to ask and to answer.
That's true.
No, that's
true.
brilliant. Oh, Ericka, I mean, it's amazing to talk to you about that. One question that I need to ask in the fitness industry: how many times were you tempted to help yourself with a boost? is there the use of speed, amphetamines, caffeine? You call it caffeinated.
I am highly caffeinated.
Answer me.
Yes,
So,
I am a caffeine junkie. I will tell you that I did at one point use a lot of supplements for energy. They were at the time legal for me,
yeah.
but that was when ephedrine was legal. And so I, of course, because I was always like operating up here, wanted the really high octane
Sure.
stuff. And I will say that in the beginning it was phenomenal, and then it felt like I was strapped to the front of a freight train, like being driven by something else. That's what that feels like. And when they changed that, when that was no longer legal, I just was like, you know what? Nothing else is doing that anymore. So I'm just going to cut that out. It was not something that I felt like I really should be doing. I really didn't like how I felt then. And, I remember my daughter sitting at dinner one night and saying, "Mommy never smiles." And I was like, oh, shit. Like, something has to change there. So I paid attention after that. So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. If you could send one message back to your former self, to the girl who was running 24 hours, who was running classes 24 hours and then went running, what would you send back?
That is a really good question, Stefan. What would I tell her? I would probably, first of all, it would probably be a question. And the question I would ask is, why are you doing this? Because that is a question I ask my clients now. What is your intention? What is it that you hope to get out of what you are doing? And is it working for you? And I don't know, actually looking back at that girl, I don't know that she would have paid much attention to that question.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
However, I would ask it. I would be like, why are you doing this? But I could answer, I could answer that as her. And the answer is really simple for people in the fitness industry. The only way to make more money is to work more hours. You can't really scale. You can't scale your business. So if you want to be a professional, like you can't technically work full time. You can't teach 40 hours a week if that's what you consider to be full time. Can't do that. So, in that moment, it was like, if you want to earn the money, you need to work the hours. And so I was caught in that. My hope is that we can educate younger instructors and help them so that they don't have to do that, because there are ways to build a professional fitness business that don't involve driving yourself into the ground.
Brilliant.
So there are ways to do it that are sustainable, that don't require you to burn yourself out, and that allow you to live your very best self. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. And that's from the word, that's from the mouth of a woman who has been there, done that, has got the scars of falling flat on her face. And these are the best scars, because they leave you with a conviction to share your story. They leave you with the need to make sense of it, and that's what you're doing nowadays. You're here trying to spread the word. Hey, it doesn't have to be like that. It will be like that if you don't pay attention, but it doesn't have to be like that. And that is a beautiful, beautiful message. It's a message of hope. It's a message of actually, yes, you will be young, you will be stupid, and you will hurt yourself either here or literally there because you're going nuts and your body is just saying, come on, don't be stupid. So yes, overuse syndromes must be huge in the fitness industry.
Yes. Yes.
No doubt about that. No, it's brilliant. This was an amazing interview, Ericka. There are a lot of things that we touched upon that are so important, and there's this link of. Oh, there's so many things, for crying out loud. It is. I was trying to summarize what we talked about, but by doing summarizing, I repeat the whole interview because there were so many golden nuggets in there. So, guys, I hope we were able to rattle your cage and to make you think a little bit about why you do your exercise, what you try to achieve, and maybe rethink of exercise as a way of accessing those issues that lay dormant and hidden in deep inside your soul, and which may either have arisen from trauma or are somehow fueling a behavior that is now no longer sensible for you. It might have suited you when you were a survivor. It might have suited you in your 20s, 30s, 40s, for reasons whatsoever. But the question is, you're struggling now. Otherwise, you wouldn't listen to that podcast here or watch that YouTube video. So, congratulations to you. You are ready to actually listen to your body. And hopefully you're ready, therefore, to see what your body really needs and take active steps towards a resolution for that. And thinking, well, how can you help yourself become the person that is serene, happy, content, and has a smile on his her face, just so that you are mummy smiles again. That is that was that sentence alone, it's gold. Okay, and for that I thank you, because at the moment I'm going through times where I'm very structured, very bang, 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 bang. When was the last time that I actually smiled naturally? I probably can count that on one hand in the last week. So time to change that. So thank you,
Yes.
Ericka. You actually made me think and reassess my own journey. There you go. Ericka, if people want to get more in touch with you, if you want to know more about you, how can they do that?
All right. Well, my online studio is Elemental Kinetics. So you can find it at elementalkinetics.com. And you will find links there to my podcast, The Work In, and some new upcoming things that I'm working on. A beautiful retreat for fitness professionals coming up in February. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but you can check out the details there. And if you are an industry professional or you're curious about a little bit about how to self-regulate or co-regulate with other human beings, which we are all human beings, there is a free guide on my website called Holding Space. And it helps you really kind of structure interaction to hold space with other people in a way that will help you both self-regulate that nervous system. So you can check that all out at elementalkinetics.com.
Oh, brilliant. Ericka, thank you so much for coming as a guest on my show. That was beautiful, and I hope you have touched so many lives out there by just actually openly discussing the more or less taboo of actually burnout and trainers actually getting into trouble themselves. But also we touched upon so many other connections between the gut, the brain, the body. Just so beautiful. So guys, delve into it. Welcome to the journey. Make this life worth living and start exploring. So Ericka, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you, Stefan.
And you out there, look after yourself. Bye.